Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Defiant Scrap, watching the stars through a cracked viewport that she had been meaning to replace for 3 years. The ship groaned around her like an old dog settling into sleep. Every surface showed wear and tear from 2 centuries of hard use. Paint peeled from the walls, exposed wiring ran along the ceiling in neat bundles, and the air recycling system hummed with a sound that meant it needed new filters again. Elena did not mind. The Defiant Scrap was ugly, old, and held together with more hope than proper engineering, but she was home. The ship had carried Elena's family through 3 generations of space freight work. Her grandfather had bought the vessel as military surplus after the colonial wars. Her father had upgraded the engines twice and added the mining equipment that now filled most of the cargo hold. Now Elena commanded the old ship, hauling supplies to frontier worlds that bigger companies ignored. "Captain, we're getting something on the long-range scanner," said Tommy Rodriguez from the communications station. Tommy was 19 years old and still impressed by everything they saw in deep space. His excitement made Elena smile, even when he reported mundane cargo manifests or routine navigation updates. "What kind of something?" Elena asked, moving to look over his shoulder. The scanner display showed a cluster of contacts at the edge of their detection range. The shapes were too regular to be asteroids and too big to be other cargo ships. "Looks like 7 large vessels in formation around New Aberdeen," Tommy said. His voice carried a note of worry now. "They're big, Captain. Really big." Elena felt her stomach tighten. New Aberdeen was their destination. A mining colony with 2 million people who depended on supply runs like theirs for everything from food to medical equipment. The colony had no military ships, no orbital defenses, and no way to protect itself if someone wanted to cause trouble. "Marcus," Elena called to her chief engineer. "Get up here and look at this." Marcus Chen emerged from the engine room, wiping grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. Marcus had worked on the Defiant Scrap for 15 years. He knew every bolt, wire, and circuit in the ship. Elena trusted his judgment more than any computer diagnostic. "What's the problem?" Marcus asked, then saw the scanner display. His expression changed from mild curiosity to serious concern. "Those are warships. Military grade from the energy signatures." Elena nodded. She had hoped Marcus would tell her the scanner was malfunctioning. "Any idea whose?" "Let me run the profiles through our database," Marcus said, taking over the sensor controls. His fingers moved quickly across the interface, comparing the scanner readings to known ship designs. After a few minutes, he looked up with grim eyes. "Hegemony Dominion, 7 heavy cruisers, probably their newest class." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about the Hegemony Dominion. The alliance of alien species controlled most of the galaxy's core worlds. Their technology was centuries ahead of human engineering. Their ships could destroy planets. Their armies had never lost a major battle. Most importantly, they had never shown any interest in human space before now. "Why would the Dominion come to New Aberdeen?" asked Sarah Kim, the ship's pilot. Sarah had been flying cargo runs for 12 years and prided herself on knowing every political situation in the frontier systems. "There's nothing there but mining operations and farming domes." "Maybe they want the mineral rights," Tommy suggested. "New Aberdeen has some of the richest titanium deposits in the sector." Elena shook her head. "The Dominion has entire star systems full of rare metals. They wouldn't need our little mining colony." She turned to Marcus. "How long until we reach New Aberdeen?" 18 hours at current speed," Marcus replied. "But Captain, if the Dominion is there in force, maybe we should change course. Head back to Earth space and report what we've seen." Elena considered the suggestion. It made tactical sense. The Defiant Scrap was not a warship. She carried exactly 2 functioning plasma cannons left over from her military service days, plus a mining laser that was designed for cutting through asteroids, not enemy hulls. Her crew consisted of 12 people, most of whom had never seen combat. Against 7 Dominion heavy cruisers, they would last approximately 30 seconds. But 2 million people lived on New Aberdeen. If the Dominion was planning something hostile, those colonists had no way to defend themselves and nowhere to run. The nearest Earth Defense Force ships were months away, assuming Earth even knew what was happening. "Tommy, see if you can raise New Aberdeen on the communications array," Elena ordered. "Find out what's going on." Tommy worked at his station for several minutes, adjusting frequencies and boosting the signal strength. Finally, he made contact. "I've got the Colonial Administration Office, Captain. Patching it through now." The main screen flickered and showed the face of Governor Sarah Mitchell, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and worry lines around her eyes. Elena had met the governor on previous supply runs. She was a good administrator who genuinely cared about her people. "Captain Vasquez, thank God you're here," Governor Mitchell said. "We've been trying to contact Earth for 6 hours, but something is jamming our long-range transmissions." "Governor, we're seeing 7 large ships in orbit around your world. Can you tell us what's happening?" Governor Mitchell's expression darkened. "They arrived this morning without warning." The lead ship transmitted a message in perfect English. "They're demanding complete surrender of New Aberdeen to Hegemony Dominion Authority. We have 72 hours to evacuate all our military personnel and transfer control of our mining operations to their representatives." "What military personnel?" Elena asked. "You don't have any military personnel." That's what I told them. They said all colonial administrators count as military personnel. They want me and my entire staff to leave. The colonists can stay, but only as workers under Dominion supervision. Elena felt anger building in her chest. The Dominion was demanding that 2 million human beings become slaves in their own homes. The colonists had built New Aberdeen with their own hands, turning a barren rock into a thriving world. Now aliens who had never lifted a finger to help wanted to take it all away. "Have they made any hostile moves?" Elena asked. "Not yet, but Captain, their ships are enormous. Each one could probably destroy our entire settlement with a single shot. We don't have any choice but to comply." Elena looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. Tommy appeared scared but determined. Sarah was checking their weapons systems, though Elena knew there was not much to check. Marcus was already calculating flight paths and engine performance, preparing for whatever decision Elena made. The smart choice was obvious. Turn around, head back to Earth space, and report the situation to proper military authorities. The Defiant scrap could not fight 7 Dominion warships. Elena's crew would die uselessly, and the colonists would still become slaves. But Elena had spent her entire adult life carrying supplies to frontier colonies like New Aberdeen. She had watched ordinary people build extraordinary things in impossible places. She had seen farmers create gardens on airless moons, engineers construct cities inside asteroid caverns, and families raise children in environments that would kill most Earth dwellers in minutes. These people did not give up when things got difficult. They found ways to survive and prosper no matter what the universe threw at them. Elena could not abandon them now, even if the odds were hopeless. "Governor, patch me through to the Dominion fleet," Elena said. "Captain, what are you planning?" Marcus asked quietly. "I'm going to talk to them," Elena replied. "Maybe I can buy you some time to think of options." Governor Mitchell nodded and worked at her communications console. After a few moments, the screen changed to show the interior of an alien bridge. The technology was sleek and advanced, with smooth surfaces that seemed to glow with their own light. Holographic displays showed tactical information that Elena could not begin to understand. The alien commander was tall and humanoid, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. His uniform was made from material that shifted colors as he moved. When he spoke, his voice was translated by sophisticated computer systems that made him sound almost human. "I am Commander Zixthala of the Hegemony Dominion Fleet," the alien said. "You are Captain Elena Vasquez of the human cargo vessel Defiant Scrap. We have analyzed your ship's capabilities and determined that you pose no threat to our operations." Elena felt her temper flare at the dismissive tone, but she kept her voice level. "Commander, I'm requesting clarification of your intentions regarding New Aberdeen Colony. New Aberdeen will be incorporated into the Hegemony Dominion as a resource extraction facility. Human colonists will continue their mining operations under our supervision. Colonial administration will be transferred to more competent authority. And if the colonists refuse?" Commander Zixathala's expression did not change. "Refusal is not possible. We have 7 heavy cruisers in position around this world. Each ship carries enough firepower to sterilize the planetary surface. Compliance is the only logical option." Elena looked at the alien commander's confident face and felt something cold settle in her stomach. This was not negotiation or diplomacy. This was a stronger predator taking what it wanted from weaker prey. The Dominion had decided to expand into human space, starting with an isolated colony that could not defend itself. "What if I told you that Earth Defense Forces are already on their way?" Elena asked. "We would know if Earth had dispatched military vessels to this sector," the commander replied. "Our intelligence capabilities are quite thorough. The nearest human warships are currently engaged in exercises near the Centauri system, approximately 4 months' travel time from this location. Elena's heart sank. The Dominion knew exactly how vulnerable New Aberdeen was. They had planned this operation carefully, choosing a target that would be impossible for Earth to defend in time. Captain Vasquez, you have 2 options, Commander Zixthala continued. You may depart this system immediately and report our presence to Earth authorities. Or you may remain and witness the peaceful transition of New Aberdeen to Dominion control. Any attempt to interfere with our operations will result in the destruction of your vessel. The transmission ended. Elena stared at the blank screen for several seconds, then turned to face her crew. They were all looking at her, waiting for orders. Well? Marcus asked. Elena walked to the navigation console and called up a tactical display of the New Aberdeen system. 7 red dots marked the positions of the Dominion warships. They were arranged in a perfect formation that covered all approach vectors to the planet. Any ship trying to reach the surface would have to pass through their overlapping fields of fire. The Defiant scrap appeared as a single green dot at the edge of the system. Elena stared at the display for a long moment, thinking about her grandfather, who had bought this ship with his military pension after serving in the colonial wars. She thought about her father, who had spent his life keeping the old vessel running, so he could carry supplies to people who needed them. She thought about 2 million colonists who were about to lose their freedom, because no one was there to help them. Sarah, plot a course for New Aberdeen, Elena said quietly. Captain? Tommy's voice cracked slightly. Are we really going to fight 7 Dominion warships? Elena looked at the young man and saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. But she also saw determination and trust. Tommy believed in her, just like the rest of her crew. They would follow her orders even if those orders led them into an impossible battle. We're going to try, Elena said. Marcus, I need you to run a complete diagnostic on all our systems. Find out exactly what we have to work with. Elena, Marcus said, using her first name as he only did when they were alone or when the situation was very serious. Our weapons can't penetrate Dominion shields. Our hull can't withstand their firepower. If we try to fight them, we'll die. Elena nodded. Probably. But if we don't try, 2 million people become slaves. She turned to address the entire crew. I'm not ordering anyone to stay. We can drop you off at the nearest space station, and no one will think less of you for choosing to live. The bridge was silent for several seconds. Then Sarah spoke up. I've been flying cargo runs for 12 years. Never left anyone stranded yet. Not planning to start now. The engines are running better than they have in months, Marcus added. Shame to waste all that maintenance work. Tommy straightened in his chair. My little sister lives on New Aberdeen. She moved there last year to work in the hydroponic farms. I'm not leaving her. One by one, the rest of the crew voiced their agreement. Elena felt a mixture of pride and sorrow. These were good people who deserved better than to die in a hopeless battle. But they had chosen to stand with her anyway. All right then, Elena said. Let's go see what the Defiant scrap can do against the best the galaxy has to offer. The old cargo ship changed course toward New Aberdeen, its engines leaving a faint trail of ionized particles in the darkness of space. Behind them, 7 alien warships waited in perfect formation, confident in their superiority and certain of their victory. They had no way of knowing that they were about to learn an important lesson about humanity. When cornered, humans did not surrender quietly. They fought with whatever they had, however they could, for as long as possible, and sometimes that was enough. The Defiant scrap flew through space toward New Aberdeen, while Elena gathered her crew in the main cargo hold. The vast compartment was filled with mining equipment, construction materials, and spare parts that the colonists had ordered. Everything looked ordinary and peaceful, but Elena saw possibilities that military strategists might miss. Listen carefully, Elena told her crew. We cannot fight the Dominion ships the way they expect. Their weapons are stronger, their shields are better, and their hulls are thicker than anything we have. If we try to match them in a straight battle, we will lose in minutes. Marcus nodded grimly. Their plasma cannons can punch through our hull like paper. Our shields will collapse after maybe 2 hits from their main guns. So we don't fight them straight, Elena continued. We fight them the way humans always fight when we're outmatched. We cheat, we improvise. We use everything we have in ways they won't expect. Sarah raised her hand. Captain, what exactly do we have? 2 old plasma cannons and a mining laser? That's not much against 7 heavy cruisers. Elena smiled for the first time since seeing the Dominion ships. Sarah, look around this cargo hold. What do you see? Mining equipment, construction materials, industrial supplies. I see weapons, Elena replied. Explosives, projectiles, electronic warfare tools. Everything we need to hurt ships that think they're invincible. She walked over to a stack of mining charges, each one designed to blast through solid rock. These are shaped charges with enough power to crack an asteroid. Marcus, can we modify them for use against ship hulls? Marcus examined one of the charges, turning it over in his hands. The explosive yield is impressive, but they're designed for static demolition work. We'd need some way to get them close to enemy ships and detonate them at the right moment. What about using the construction drones? Suggested Lisa Park, the ship's mechanic. Lisa was small and quiet, but she understood machinery better than anyone else on the crew. We have 6 heavy-duty drones for assembling mining platforms. They're tough, they have their own power systems, and they can carry significant loads. Elena's smile widened. Turn them into guided missiles. Load each drone with mining charges and program them to home in on the Dominion ships. Tommy looked up from his communication station. But Captain, won't their point defense systems shoot down anything we launch at them? Maybe, Elena agreed. But they're expecting missiles and fighters, not construction equipment. Their targeting computers might not recognize industrial drones as threats until it's too late. The crew spent the next several hours transforming their cargo hold into an improvised weapons factory. They stripped the guidance systems from 6 construction drones and reprogrammed them to track energy signatures instead of worksite beacons. Each drone was loaded with 4 mining charges and fitted with proximity sensors that would trigger the explosives when they got close to a target. Meanwhile, Marcus worked on a more ambitious project. He had discovered something in the ship's records that even Elena had forgotten about. Hidden in a sealed compartment behind the main engine was a prototype artificial intelligence that Elena's father had been developing in secret. Why did Dad never tell me about this? Elena asked as Marcus activated the AI system. Because it was technically illegal, Marcus replied. After the AI rebellion on Titan, Earth banned autonomous intelligence systems on civilian vessels. Your father built this one anyway, but he never got a chance to test it. The AI came online with a soft chime. When it spoke, the voice sounded almost human, with just enough electronic distortion to remind everyone that it was not. Good afternoon. I am Adaptive Logistics Intelligence Network, designation ALIN. I was designed to optimize supply chain management under challenging conditions. How may I assist you? Elena stared at the holographic display that showed ALIN's interface. You're designed for logistics? Correct. I can analyze resource distribution, predict supply needs, coordinate transportation schedules, and optimize equipment utilization across multiple work sites. I am particularly effective at solving problems with limited resources. Elena exchanged glances with Marcus. Alan, can you analyze military tactical situations? I am not programmed for military applications. However, I can treat enemy ships as logistics problems to be solved. If you provide me with sensor data on hostile vessels, I can recommend methods for disrupting their supply lines, communication networks, and operational efficiency. That's exactly what we need, Elena said. Aelin, analyze the Dominion fleet and tell me how to disrupt their operations. Aelin processed the sensor readings from the alien ships. The AI worked faster than any human could, examining energy patterns, formation structures, and communication protocols. After 30 seconds, it provided its analysis. The Dominion fleet is organized according to standard military doctrine. They maintain precise formations to maximize overlapping fire coverage. Their communication system uses quantum entanglement for real-time coordination. Their ships appear to be identical in design, suggesting mass production with standardized components. What does that tell us? Elena asked. Mass-produced systems have common vulnerabilities. If you can disrupt one ship's sensors, the same technique will work on all 7 ships. Their reliance on precise formations means they will have difficulty adapting to chaotic situations. Their quantum communication system, while secure, requires significant power and will be vulnerable to electromagnetic interference. Elena felt hope growing in her chest. The AI was giving them something to work with. What about their weapons and defenses? Their energy shields are calibrated to deflect known weapon types: plasma bolts, particle beams, fusion missiles, and kinetic projectiles within specific velocity ranges. However, their databases likely do not include industrial tools as potential weapons. Marcus leaned forward. What kind of industrial tools? Your mining laser operates outside standard weapon parameters. It uses a continuous beam rather than pulsed energy. Their shields may not recognize it as a threat until it has already penetrated their defenses. Lisa looked up from the drone she was modifying. What about our mining railgun? We use it to launch survey probes, but it could fire other things. Aline processed this information. A mining railgun would accelerate projectiles to velocities outside the expected range for ship-to-ship combat. Enemy point defense systems would not prioritize such slow-moving objects. However, if you loaded the railgun with dense materials like refined titanium ingots, the projectiles would carry sufficient kinetic energy to damage unshielded hulls. Elena walked over to examine their mining equipment more carefully. The Defiant scrap carried a full orbital mining platform in pieces. When assembled, the platform could process asteroids, extract valuable minerals, and launch refined materials back to ships for transport. But the components could be used for other purposes if necessary. How long would it take to assemble the mining platform? Elena asked Lisa. In normal conditions, about 6 hours with a full construction crew. With just our people working in combat conditions, maybe 12 hours. We don't have 12 hours, Sarah pointed out. The Dominion gave the colonists 72 hours to surrender. We've already used up 18 hours getting here. Elena studied the tactical situation. The Dominion ships were maintaining their formation around New Aberdeen, confident that no threat could reach them. They were wrong, but Elena needed time to prove it. Tommy, open a channel to the colonial government, Elena ordered. Governor Mitchell's face appeared on the main screen again. She looked exhausted and frightened. Captain Vasquez, please tell me you have reinforcements coming. Governor, I need you to buy us some time. Can you negotiate with the Dominion? Request extensions? Ask for clarification of terms, anything to delay their deadline. I can try, but they seem very determined to stick to their schedule. Why? What are you planning? Elena chose her words carefully. We're going to give them a fight they won't expect. But we need time to prepare. Can you give us another day? Governor Mitchell nodded slowly. I'll do what I can. But Captain, please be careful. These aliens have technology we can't even understand. I don't want you to throw your lives away. After the transmission ended, Elena turned back to her crew. They had perhaps 24 hours to turn a cargo hauler into something that could threaten the most advanced warships in the galaxy. It should have been impossible, but Elena had learned never to underestimate human ingenuity when properly motivated. All right, people. We have work to do. Lisa, start assembling the mining platform in sections. We'll put it together in space if we have to. Marcus, I want you to modify our weapon systems. See if you can overcharge the mining laser beyond safety limits. How far beyond safety limits? Marcus asked. Far enough to burn through Dominion shields. I don't care if it burns out after one shot as long as that shot counts. Sarah moved to her pilot station. I'll plot attack vectors that use the planet's gravity well and orbital mechanics to our advantage. If we're going to surprise them, we need to come at them from directions they won't expect. Tommy looked uncertain. What should I do, Captain? Elena put a hand on his shoulder. You're our communications specialist. I want you to learn everything you can about Dominion communication protocols. If Aileen is right about electromagnetic interference, we might be able to disrupt their coordination. The next 20 hours passed quickly. The crew worked with desperate energy, modifying equipment and preparing for a battle that none of them expected to survive. Elena found herself amazed by their creativity and determination. Marcus figured out how to jury-rig their plasma cannons to fire in sequence, doubling their rate of fire. Lisa converted their spare atmospheric processors into electromagnetic pulse generators. Sarah programmed attack patterns that would keep them moving too fast for enemy targeting systems to lock onto them. Alan proved invaluable, analyzing every modification and suggesting improvements. The AI seemed to enjoy the challenge of turning peaceful equipment into weapons of war. Elena began to understand why her father had built the system in secret. Aileen was not just a logistics computer. It was a problem-solving engine that could adapt to any situation. As they approached New Aberdeen, Elena gathered her crew on the bridge one final time. Through the viewport they could see the 7 Dominion ships hanging in space like predators waiting for prey. The alien vessels were beautiful in their own way, with hulls that seemed to absorb light and energy fields that made them shimmer like mirages. Remember the plan, Elena told her crew. We hit them fast and hard using everything we've prepared. Don't give them time to adapt to our tactics. Most importantly, don't try to be heroes. Our job is to hurt them enough that they decide New Aberdeen isn't worth the trouble. Marcus checked his engineering displays one final time. All systems are ready, Captain. The mining laser is charged to 150% of normal power. The modified plasma cannons are loaded and targeting systems are online. The drones are armed and ready for launch, Lisa reported from the cargo bay. Mining platform components are secured for combat deployment. I can start assembly as soon as we reach the target zone. Tommy adjusted his communications array. I'm picking up Dominion Fleet communications. They're using rotating encryption, but Aelin is working on breaking their codes. Sarah brought up the tactical display. I have 3 different attack vectors plotted. The first approach uses the planet's shadow to mask our initial deployment. The second vector takes us through the asteroid field, where their sensors will have trouble tracking us. The third is a direct assault if the first 2 options fail. Elena nodded. Everything was as ready as they could make it. The Defiant scrap was no longer just a cargo hauler. She was a warship built from spare parts, determination, and human stubbornness. Her weapons were improvised, her defenses were minimal, and her chances of success were almost 0. But Elena had learned something important during her years of carrying supplies to frontier colonies. Humans had a gift for making impossible things work. They built cities in places where cities should not exist. They grew food on worlds that had never seen rain. They survived in environments that would kill most other species. Now they would see if that same stubborn refusal to accept defeat could work against the most advanced military force in the galaxy. All right, people, Elena said, settling into her captain's chair. Let's go show the Dominion what humans can do when someone threatens our people. The Defiant scrap changed course toward the alien fleet, her improvised weapons charged and ready. Behind her, the components of an orbital mining platform waited to become something that had never existed before. A fortress built from industrial equipment and held together by sheer human will. The battle for New Aberdeen was about to begin. Commander Zixathala stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Inevitable Conquest, and watched the human cargo vessel approach his fleet. The ship moved slowly and clumsily, like an injured animal limping toward its death. Its hull showed centuries of wear and repair, and its energy signature barely registered on his sensors. Commander, reported his tactical officer, the human ship is maintaining course toward our formation. They appear to be heading directly for the planet. Zixthala studied the tactical display with mild curiosity. 7 Dominion heavy cruisers surrounded New Aberdeen in perfect formation. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy the human vessel 1,000 times over. Their shields could deflect any weapon in the primitive human arsenal. Their hulls could withstand direct hits from fusion warheads. Are they attempting to communicate? Zixthala asked. No, Commander. They appear to be ignoring all our transmission attempts. Perhaps they are simply delivering supplies as originally planned, suggested the science officer. Our intelligence reports indicate that human cargo vessels often maintain schedule regardless of external circumstances. Zixthala nodded. Humans were known for their stubborn adherence to routine, even when logic demanded flexibility. The cargo ship would approach the planet, realize that the situation had changed, and either surrender or flee. Either outcome was acceptable. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Defiant scrap, Elena watched the Dominion fleet through her cracked viewport. The alien ships hung in space like jewels, their hulls reflecting the light of New Aberdeen's sun. They were beautiful and terrible, representing technology that humanity could not hope to match. Aline, are you reading their formation? Helena asked. The AI's voice filled the bridge. Confirmed. 7 ships in standard defensive pattern. They are positioned to provide overlapping fire coverage for all approach vectors to the planet. However, their formation assumes conventional attack patterns. What kind of unconventional patterns could we use? Their positioning is optimized for threats coming from outside the system. They have not considered attacks that originate from within their own formation. Elena smiled grimly. Explain. Alan highlighted several positions on the tactical display. If you deploy the mining platform components here, and here, you can assemble a weapons platform inside their defensive perimeter. They will not expect industrial equipment to pose a threat. Sarah looked up from her navigation console. Captain, to reach those positions, we'll have to fly right through the middle of their fleet. That's the idea, Elena replied. They won't fire on a cargo ship that's clearly not threatening them. By the time they realize what we're doing, we'll already be in position. Marcus checked his engineering displays. All systems are ready. The mining drones are loaded and programmed. The modified weapons are charged. I've bypassed all safety systems on the mining laser. Elena took a deep breath. Everything they had worked for in the past 20 hours came down to the next few minutes. Sarah, take us in. Nice and slow, like we're making a routine supply delivery. The Defiant scrap approached the Dominion fleet at cargo hauling speed. Elena could feel the tension on the bridge as they passed between two of the alien warships. The Dominion vessels were enormous up close, their hulls stretching for kilometers in every direction. They're scanning us, Tommy reported. Full spectrum sensor sweep. Let them look, Elena said. All they'll see is a cargo hauler full of mining equipment. On the inevitable conquest, the tactical officer reported his findings. The human ship contains standard industrial equipment, Commander. Mining tools, construction materials, atmospheric processors. No military hardware detected. Zixthala nodded with satisfaction. As expected. Continue monitoring, but do not interfere with their approach. The Defiant scrap flew deeper into the Dominion formation, passing within weapons range of 3 heavy cruisers. Elena could see the alien ship's gun ports and missile launchers, all of them trained on empty space. The Dominion crews were alert but not concerned. A single human cargo ship posed no threat to their superior technology. Now, Elena whispered. Sarah activated the cargo bay doors. Dozens of mining platform components spilled into space, looking like debris from a damaged ship. The pieces drifted apart, carried by their own momentum and the gentle push of New Aberdeen's gravity well. What are they doing? The Dominion tactical officer asked, watching the human ship scatter its cargo across several thousand cubic kilometers of space. Perhaps their cargo bay doors malfunctioned, Zixthala suggested. Human technology is notoriously unreliable, but Aelin had calculated every trajectory perfectly. The mining platform components spread out across multiple positions, each piece following a carefully programmed path that would bring it to a predetermined assembly point. To casual observers, it looked like random debris. To anyone who understood orbital mechanics, it was a precisely choreographed dance. Phase 2, Elena announced. The construction drones launched from hidden compartments in the Defiant scrap's hull. Each drone carried a full load of mining charges and had been programmed to seek out the largest energy signatures in the area. To the drone's simple sensors, the Dominion warships looked like massive industrial installations that needed to be demolished. Commander, the Dominion tactical officer called out in alarm. Multiple small craft launching from the human vessel. Zixthala studied the new contacts on his display. The objects were moving slowly and broadcasting construction equipment identification codes. Analysis? They appear to be industrial drones, Commander. Heavy construction models designed for assembling orbital platforms. Are they armed? Negative. No weapon signatures detected. They're carrying standard industrial equipment. Zixthala relaxed slightly. Human industrial drones were common throughout the frontier systems. They were used for everything from asteroid mining to station construction. The fact that this cargo ship had launched its drones was probably just standard procedure for unloading equipment. He could not have been more wrong. The first drone reached the inevitable conquest and attached itself to the hull near the main engine section. Its mining charges were designed to blast through solid rock, but they worked equally well against starship armor. The explosion sent shockwaves through the Dominion flagship, overloading circuits and cracking hull plates. What was that? Zixthala demanded, grabbing the nearest support rail as his ship shook from the impact. The human drone just exploded against our hull, the tactical officer reported. It was carrying military-grade explosives. Before Zixthala could respond, 5 more explosions rocked the Dominion fleet. Each construction drone had found its target and detonated its cargo of mining charges. The aliens' shields deflected most of the damage, but the unexpected attacks had caught them completely off guard. All ships raise combat shields, Zixthala ordered. Target the human vessel and prepare to fire. But Elena was not finished. While the Dominion crew struggled to understand what had happened, the scattered mining platform components were coming together in space. Guided by Alan's calculations and propelled by small maneuvering thrusters, the pieces assembled themselves into something that had never existed before. An orbital weapons platform built from industrial equipment. Platform assembly complete, Alan reported. All systems online. Elena smiled as she watched the improvised fortress take shape on her tactical display. The mining platform had been designed to process asteroids and extract valuable materials. But with a few modifications, its industrial lasers became weapons, its ore crushers became projectile launchers, and its processing chambers became ammunition factories. "Target the nearest Dominion ship and open fire," Elena ordered. The orbital platform's main laser, designed to cut through solid rock, focused its beam on the hull of a Dominion heavy cruiser. The alien ship's shields tried to deflect the attack, but the mining laser was not configured like a standard weapon. Instead of pulsed energy bursts, it fired a continuous beam that gradually overwhelmed the defensive systems. Impossible. Zixthala watched in amazement as the human industrial laser burned through his ship's shields. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" His science officer worked frantically at her station, analyzing the enemy weapon. "Commander, their laser operates outside normal combat parameters. It's not designed for ship-to-ship warfare. Our shields were not programmed to handle continuous industrial cutting beams." The mining laser punched through the Dominion ship's hull and into its reactor compartment. The heavy cruiser shuddered as internal explosions ripped through its engineering sections. Within minutes, the mighty warship was drifting powerlessly, its engines dark and its weapons offline. "One down, 6 to go," Elena muttered. But the Dominion fleet was adapting quickly to the unexpected threat. Zixthala's remaining ships broke formation and began firing on the orbital platform with their main guns. Plasma bolts and particle beams struck the improvised fortress, tearing apart its industrial components. "Platform taking heavy damage," Aelin reported with mechanical calm. "Structural integrity failing in multiple sections." Elena had expected this. The mining platform was tough, but it was not designed to withstand military-grade weapons. It had served its purpose by eliminating one enemy ship and proving that human ingenuity could threaten even the most advanced technology. "All right, Phase 3, Elena announced. "Sarah, take us into the asteroid field. Marcus, prepare the mining railgun." The Defiant scrap accelerated away from the dying orbital platform and toward the cluster of asteroids that orbited New Aberdeen's outer moon. The Dominion ships followed, their powerful engines easily matching the human vessel's speed. "They're gaining on us," Sarah reported, checking her navigation display. "Those ships are fast, Captain." "They're also predictable," Elena replied. "Aelin, are you tracking their movement patterns?" "Confirmed. The Dominion ships are maintaining standard pursuit formation. They are attempting to herd us away from the planet while avoiding collision with the asteroid field." Elena nodded. The alien commanders were thinking tactically, trying to force her ship into open space where their superior weapons could finish the battle quickly. They did not realize that Elena wanted to fight among the asteroids, where human desperation could overcome alien technology. "Marcus, load the railgun with refined titanium ingots," Elena ordered. "Program them for maximum velocity." The mining railgun was designed to launch survey probes and material samples across interplanetary distances. It was not a weapon, but like everything else on the Defiant scrap, it could become one with proper motivation. The first titanium ingot flew from the railgun at a significant fraction of light speed. The dense metal projectile was too small and fast for the Dominion point defense systems to intercept. It struck the lead pursuit ship's hull and punched completely through the vessel, leaving a hole the size of a cargo container. "What hit us?" demanded the captain of the damaged Dominion ship. "Unknown projectile, sir. Extremely high velocity, minimal mass. Our sensors barely detected it before impact." Zixthala studied the tactical display with growing frustration. The humans were using every piece of equipment on their ship as a weapon. Their attacks were crude and primitive, but effective in ways that violated every principle of proper military engagement. "All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel," he ordered. "End this before they can improvise any more surprises." The remaining Dominion ships opened fire with everything they had. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and fusion missiles converged on the Defiant scrap's position. But Sarah had spent the past day studying the asteroid field's gravitational patterns, and she used every trick of civilian piloting to keep her ship alive. The Defiant scrap twisted between the asteroids like a dancer, using gravity wells and spinning rocks to deflect enemy fire. What the ship lacked in armor and shields, it made up for in pure maneuverability. Sarah flew the old cargo hauler like a fighter craft, pulling G-forces that made the crew's teeth ache. "Hull breach in Cargo Bay 3, Marcus reported. "We lost atmospheric processors 4 and 5. Engineering section taking damage, Lisa called from her station. Port engine is running hot. Elena gripped her command chair as another plasma bolt passed close enough to overload their sensor array. The ship was dying around them, held together now by little more than hope and Elena's determination to protect the colonists of New Aberdeen. But they had accomplished something important. The Dominion fleet, which had seemed invincible just an hour ago, was now down to 5 functional ships. 1 heavy cruiser was completely disabled, and 2 others were showing damage from the unexpected human attacks. More importantly, Elena could see doubt in the aliens' tactics. They were no longer maintaining perfect formation. They were no longer confident in their superiority. They had learned that humans could hurt them, and that knowledge was changing everything. Alan, Elena said through gritted teeth as another enemy missile exploded nearby. Analysis of enemy fleet status? The Dominion ships have sustained approximately 15% damage across their remaining vessels. More significantly, their communication patterns suggest confusion and reduced coordination. I estimate their combat effectiveness has decreased by 30%. Elena smiled despite the desperate situation. They were still outnumbered and outgunned, but they had evened the odds slightly. The question now was whether they could survive long enough to even them further. Sarah, take us deeper into the asteroid field, Elena ordered. Let's see how well these advanced ships handle some old-fashioned asteroid mining. The asteroid field around New Aberdeen's outer moon had been formed millions of years ago, when a large planetoid broke apart under gravitational stress. The result was thousands of tumbling rocks ranging in size from pebbles to small mountains, all following chaotic orbits that made navigation extremely dangerous for large ships. Elena loved it. The defiant scrap weaved between the spinning asteroids like a fish swimming through a coral reef. Sarah's piloting skills, honed by years of threading cargo ships through dangerous shipping lanes, kept them alive as Dominion plasma bolts turned nearby rocks into glowing clouds of vaporized stone. They're having trouble targeting us, Tommy reported from his communication station. I'm intercepting their tactical communications. They keep losing target locks when we pass behind the larger asteroids. Elena nodded. The Dominion ships were designed for battles in open space, where their advanced sensors and predictive computers could track enemy movements with mathematical precision. The chaotic environment of the asteroid field was confusing their targeting systems. Marcus, how are our weapons holding up? Helena asked. The mining laser is down to 60% power after that overcharge cycle, Marcus replied. The railgun is still functional, but we're running low on titanium ingots. The plasma cannons are working, but they're not doing much damage to ships that size. Elena studied the tactical display that showed the positions of the 5 remaining Dominion vessels. They were trying to surround the asteroid field, cutting off escape routes while staying far enough away to avoid the tumbling rocks. It was a smart strategy that would eventually force the defiant scrap into the open. Alan, can you map the gravitational patterns in this field? Elena asked. Already completed, Captain. The asteroid orbits follow predictable patterns based on the moon's gravity well and the mutual attraction between larger rocks. I can calculate collision trajectories for any object in the field. Elena felt an idea forming. What if we changed those trajectories? Could we turn the asteroids into weapons? Explain your concept, please. Elena pointed to a cluster of house-sized rocks tumbling slowly through space. We use the mining laser to nudge some of those asteroids toward the Dominion ships. They won't be expecting a kinetic attack from naturally occurring objects. Alan processed this concept for several seconds. The plan is feasible. However, it would require precise timing and positioning. We would need to approach each target asteroid closely enough for the mining laser to alter its trajectory effectively, which means flying right up to rocks that could crush us if we make a mistake, Sarah added. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. They were all exhausted, running on adrenaline and determination. The ship was falling apart around them, with hull breaches in 3 sections and half their systems running on backup power. But they had not given up, and Elena was not ready to surrender. Tommy, patch me through to the Dominion fleet, she said. Commander Zixthala's face appeared on the main screen. The alien commander looked frustrated and angry, his forearms moving in agitated gestures as he spoke to his own crew. When he saw Elena, his expression became coldly furious. Captain Vasquez, you have caused enough damage to my fleet. Surrender immediately, and I will ensure that your crew receives proper medical treatment before execution. Elena smiled politely. Commander, I have a counter-proposal. Take your ships and leave this system. The colonists of New Aberdeen are under human protection. Zixthala's skin color darkened with rage. You command a single damaged cargo vessel. My remaining ships could destroy you in minutes. Probably, Elena agreed. But we've already proven that we can hurt you. How many more ships are you willing to lose trying to conquer one little mining colony? Your primitive weapons cannot threaten vessels of hegemony Dominion construction. Elena gestured to her tactical display, which clearly showed the disabled Dominion heavy cruiser drifting powerlessly near New Aberdeen. Tell that to your ship that's leaking atmosphere and running on emergency power. The transmission ended abruptly as Zixthala cut the connection. Elena could imagine the alien commander's fury at being challenged by what he considered an inferior species. The Dominion's entire culture was built on technological supremacy and military dominance. The idea that humans could fight them effectively was both impossible and intolerable. Captain, they're moving, Sarah reported. All 5 ships are converging on our position. Elena watched the enemy vessels approach the asteroid field. They were being more careful now, maintaining greater distances and using their long-range weapons to avoid the close-quarters combat that had cost them 1 ship already. But their caution would also limit their maneuverability. Sarah, take us to Asteroid Cluster 7 Alpha, Elena ordered. Aylin, prepare targeting solutions for gravitational deflection shots. The Defiant scrap accelerated toward a group of large asteroids that were following parallel orbits around the moon. Elena's plan was risky and required perfect timing, but it was their best chance to even the odds further. The ship approached the first target asteroid, a regular chunk of rock about the size of a city block. Sarah brought them alongside the tumbling mass, matching its rotation and orbital velocity. The maneuver required extraordinary piloting skill, since any mistake would result in collision and instant death. In position, Sarah announced, sweat beading on her forehead from the concentration required. Firing mining laser, Marcus said. The industrial laser struck the asteroid's surface and began carving into the ancient rock. But instead of cutting through completely, Marcus focused the beam on one side of the asteroid, using the vaporized stone as a crude thruster. The expanding cloud of superheated gas pushed against the asteroid's mass, gradually altering its trajectory. Gravitational deflection successful, Aylin reported. Target asteroid is now on collision course with Dominion Vessel 3. Impact in 4 minutes, 17 seconds, Elena grinned. 1 down, lots more to go. Sarah, take us to the next asteroid. The Defiant scrap repeated the maneuver 6 more times, nudging asteroids into collision courses with different Dominion ships. Each deflection required them to fly dangerously close to tumbling rocks, while enemy plasma bolts filled the space around them. Twice, Sarah had to perform emergency maneuvers to avoid incoming fire that would have vaporized them instantly. The first asteroid struck its target exactly as Aylin had calculated. The house-sized rock hit the Dominion cruiser at orbital velocity, punching through the ship's shields like they were made of tissue paper. The kinetic impact was equivalent to a fusion warhead, cracking the alien vessel's hull and sending it spinning out of control. 2 down, 4 to go, Elena said with satisfaction. But Commander Zixthala was learning from his mistakes. He ordered his remaining ships to spread out and use their point defense systems to destroy any asteroids that threatened them. Particle beams and interceptor missiles turned the deflected rocks into clouds of harmless debris before they could reach their targets. They're adapting to our tactics, Aylin observed. Further gravitational deflection attacks will have a low probability of success. Elena nodded. She had expected the Dominion commanders to figure out what she was doing eventually. The question was whether she could eliminate more of their ships before they completely negated her asteroid strategy. Marcus, what's our status on conventional weapons? She asked. Mining laser is down to 40% power and dropping. The railgun has 3 more titanium ingots loaded. Plasma cannons are functional but ineffective against their shields. Elena studied the tactical situation. 4 Dominion ships remained operational, plus the 2 that were damaged but still capable of fighting. Her own ship was barely holding together, and they were almost out of ammunition and power. In any conventional sense, they had already lost the battle. But Elena had learned something important about the Dominion during the past hour of combat. For all their advanced technology and superior firepower, the aliens were not particularly creative. They followed standard military doctrine and expected their enemies to do the same. When faced with unconventional tactics, They needed time to adapt and develop countermeasures. Time that Elena was not going to give them. New plan, she announced. We're going to ram them. The bridge fell silent. Even Aline seemed to pause before responding. Captain, collision with a Dominion heavy cruiser would result in the complete destruction of our vessel and the death of all crew members. Not if we do it right, Elena replied. Marcus, can you overload our reactor? Make it go critical just before impact? Marcus stared at her in shock. Elena, are you talking about turning our ship into a bomb? A very large bomb. Alan, calculate the explosive yield of our reactor going critical. The AI processed the request. Antimatter containment failure would release approximately 50 terajoules of energy. The explosion would be equivalent to a large fusion warhead. Enough to destroy a Dominion heavy cruiser? Affirmative. However, our ship would also be destroyed in the process. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. They were all staring at her with expressions of shock, fear, and determination. She was asking them to die for people they had never met, to sacrifice their lives for colonists who might not even know their names. I'm not ordering anyone to stay, Elena said quietly. We have escape pods. Anyone who wants to abandon ship can do so with no shame. Tommy was the first to speak. My sister lives down there, Captain. I'm not leaving her. Lisa nodded firmly. This ship has been good to me for 8 years. If she's going out, I'm going out with her. Sarah laughed shakily. I always said I'd die at the controls of a spacecraft. Never thought it would be during a suicide run against alien warships, but hey, life is full of surprises. Marcus walked over and put a hand on Elena's shoulder. Your father built this ship to serve humanity. I think he'd approve of what we're planning to do. Elena felt tears forming in her eyes. These people were willing to die because they trusted her judgment and shared her commitment to protecting innocent lives. She had never been more proud or more frightened. All right then, she said, her voice steady despite her emotions. Let's show the Dominion what happens when you threaten human worlds. But before they could begin their final attack run, something unexpected happened. Alan suddenly announced, Captain, I am detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching from the outer system. Large vessels, human design. Elena spun to stare at the tactical display. A dozen new contacts were dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Aberdeen system. The energy signatures were massive, easily matching the Dominion heavy cruisers in size and power. Tommy, try to identify those ships, Elena ordered. Tommy worked frantically at his communications console. After a few moments, his face broke into a huge grin. Captain, it's the Earth Defense Force. Battleship Indomitable and her task force. They're requesting permission to engage the Dominion fleet. Elena slumped back in her command chair as relief flooded through her body. Somehow Earth had learned about the threat to New Aberdeen and dispatched military vessels to respond. The colonists were safe, the battle was won, and her crew would not have to die today. But as she watched the Earth Defense Force ships accelerate toward the Dominion fleet, Elena felt a strange mixture of gratitude and disappointment. They had been so close to proving that human determination could overcome any odds. Now she would never know if their desperate plan would have worked. Commander Zix Thala, faced with a dozen human battleships that outgunned his remaining vessels, made the only logical decision. He ordered his fleet to retreat, abandoning New Aberdeen to human control. The defiant Scrap had won her impossible battle, though not in the way Elena had expected. As Earth Defense Force ships took up defensive positions around New Aberdeen, Elena finally allowed herself to smile. They had saved 2 million lives with a cargo hauler, some mining equipment, and pure human stubbornness. It was, she decided, not a bad day's work. The conference room aboard the Earth Defense Force battleship Indomitable was filled with tension despite the victory at New Aberdeen. Admiral Sarah Chen, Marcus's older sister, sat at the head of a polished table surrounded by military officers, colonial representatives, and intelligence analysts. Elena felt out of place in her oil-stained cargo hauler uniform among all the crisp military dress blues. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Admiral Chen said, reviewing the battle reports on her tablet. A single cargo vessel engaged 7 Dominion heavy cruisers and managed to destroy 2 of them using mining equipment? That's correct, Admiral, Elena replied. We also damaged 3 others before your task force arrived. The Admiral shook her head in amazement. Captain Vasquez, what you accomplished should have been impossible. Dominion technology is centuries ahead of our own. Their shields can deflect fusion warheads. Their hulls can withstand direct hits from plasma cannons. but they couldn't handle industrial lasers and construction drones, Elena said with a slight smile. Their defensive systems were designed to stop military weapons, not mining tools. Colonel Martinez, the task force's intelligence officer, leaned forward. The strategic implications are enormous. If civilian equipment can threaten Dominion warships, then every human colony and cargo vessel becomes a potential military asset. Elena shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Colonel, I don't think what we did can be easily repeated. We had very specific advantages: an asteroid field to hide in, industrial equipment that the Dominion didn't recognize as weapons, and an AI system that could coordinate everything. Tell us more about this AI, Admiral Chen requested. Our preliminary scans of your ship detected a sophisticated computer system that shouldn't exist on a civilian vessel. Elena glanced at Marcus, who nodded slightly. They had agreed to be honest about Aelin, despite the legal complications. My father built it in secret about 10 years ago. Helene is designed for logistics management, but it turned out to be very good at treating military problems like supply chain issues. Where is this AI now? Still aboard the Defiant scrap. Aelin has been helping coordinate repairs to the ship. Admiral Chen made a note on her tablet. We'll need to examine that system more closely. An AI that can turn civilian equipment into effective weapons could revolutionize our defensive capabilities. Elena felt a surge of protectiveness toward Aelin. The AI had saved their lives and helped them protect 2 million colonists. She did not want military bureaucrats to take Aelin away and turn it into just another weapon system. Governor Mitchell spoke up from her position at the far end of the table. Admiral, I think we're missing the larger point here. The Dominion attacked a human colony without provocation. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a territorial dispute. They came here intending to enslave our people. We're aware of the implications, Governor, Admiral Chen replied. This incident represents the first direct military action by the hegemony Dominion against human territory. We're treating it as an act of war. What's Earth's response going to be? Elena asked. The Admiral's expression became carefully neutral. That's above my pay grade, Captain. But I can tell you that the Defense Council is taking this very seriously. We're reinforcing our border systems and accelerating the construction of new warships. Colonel Martinez consulted his own notes. Our intelligence suggests that the Dominion tested us here. They chose an isolated target to see how we would respond. If Captain Vasquez hadn't intervened, they would have learned that humanity can't protect its own colonies. Instead, they learned that humans fight back even when the odds are hopeless, Elena said. Exactly, and that changes everything. The meeting continued for another hour, with military officers asking detailed questions about the battle, and Elena providing as much technical information as she could remember. Finally, Admiral Chen dismissed most of the attendees, asking Elena to remain behind. Captain Vasquez, I want to offer you a commission in the Earth Defense Force, the Admiral said once they were alone. Your tactical thinking and command abilities are exactly what we need for the coming conflict with the Dominion. Elena was quiet for a long moment. The offer was tempting in many ways. Military service would provide better pay, advanced ships, and properly trained crews. She would have access to real weapons instead of improvised mining equipment. Most importantly, she could help prepare humanity's defenses against future Dominion attacks. But she thought about the colonists of New Aberdeen and the dozens of other frontier worlds that depended on cargo ships like the Defiant scrap for their survival. Someone needed to carry supplies to those isolated settlements. Someone needed to maintain the trade routes that kept human civilization expanding across the galaxy. Thank you for the offer, Admiral, but I have to decline, Elena said. I'm a cargo hauler, not a military officer. My job is keeping the colonies supplied and connected to the rest of humanity. Admiral Chen nodded with understanding. I thought you might say that. In that case, I have a different proposal. How would you feel about carrying some special cargo on your regular runs? What kind of special cargo? Defensive equipment, sensor arrays, communication systems, emergency supplies, things that could help colonies defend themselves if the Dominion comes back. Elena smiled. That sounds like exactly the kind of cargo we should be hauling. Later that evening, Elena stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable and watched the repair crews working on the Defiant scrap. The old ship looked even more battered than usual, with new hull patches covering the damage from Dominion weapons. But she was still intact, still functional, and still ready to carry cargo to wherever it was needed. Marcus joined her at the viewport, carrying 2 cups of coffee that actually tasted good for once. The military had much better supplies than civilian cargo haulers. Aylin wants to talk to you, Marcus said. The AI has been analyzing the battle data and has some interesting conclusions. What kind of conclusions? Better if you hear it directly from Aylin. They made their way to the Defiant Scraps Bridge where the AI's holographic interface was displaying tactical diagrams from the recent battle. When Aylin saw Elena, the display changed to show a statistical analysis of the engagement. Captain, I have completed my evaluation of our combat effectiveness against Dominion forces, Aylin announced. The results are both encouraging and concerning. Explain, Elena said, settling into her command chair. Our success was primarily due to 3 factors: technological surprise, environmental advantages, and tactical unpredictability. The Dominion forces were not prepared for weapons that operated outside standard military parameters. Elena nodded. That makes sense. What's the concerning part? These advantages were largely situational. In a different environment, against prepared opponents, similar tactics would be much less effective. However, I believe the fundamental principle remains valid. Which principle is that? Aylin paused for a moment as if considering how to phrase its response. Human adaptability is your species' greatest military asset. The Dominion relies on technological superiority and standardized tactics. When confronted with opponents who refuse to follow established patterns, their advantages become less decisive. Elena thought about this analysis. So you're saying we won because we cheated? I prefer to say that you redefined the parameters of engagement. Military doctrine assumes that all participants will follow certain rules of combat. When one side ignores those rules, the other side must adapt or lose. Marcus leaned forward. What about future engagements? Will the Dominion adapt to our tactics? Eventually, yes. But adaptation takes time, and humans appear to be better at improvisation than most species. If humanity can maintain its tactical flexibility while improving its technology, the Dominion's advantages can be overcome. Elena stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars beyond New Aberdeen. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was probably analyzing this battle and developing countermeasures for human unconventional warfare, but they were also dealing with the psychological impact of losing ships to a cargo hauler armed with mining equipment. Aylin, do you think the Dominion will attack other human colonies? Probability assessment suggests they will attempt smaller operations to test improved defensive measures. However, they will be more cautious about selecting targets. The knowledge that any human settlement might fight back will complicate their planning significantly. Elena smiled at that thought. The Dominion had come to New Aberdeen expecting an easy victory over helpless colonists. Instead, they had encountered resistance from people who refused to surrender their freedom. That lesson would spread throughout both human space and the Dominion territories. Over the next several days, Elena and her crew worked with Earth Defense Force engineers to repair the Defiant scrap and modify her systems for future operations. The ship received upgraded shields, improved weapons, and a sophisticated sensor array that could detect Dominion vessels at long range. More importantly, they received a new mission. Elena would continue carrying cargo to frontier colonies, but now that cargo would include defensive equipment and emergency supplies. The Defiant scrap would help build a network of early warning systems and mutual aid agreements among the human settlements. Tommy was especially excited about the new communications equipment they would be carrying. Captain, with these quantum transmitters, we can create an instant communication network between all the colonies. If the Dominion attacks one world, every other settlement will know about it immediately. Sarah was pleased with the ship's improved engines and navigation systems. We'll be able to reach emergency destinations faster and navigate more dangerous regions if we need to avoid Dominion patrols. Lisa had spent hours studying the new defensive systems. The shield generators are civilian grade, but they're much better than what we had before. And the automated repair systems will help us fix damage without putting people at risk. Marcus was most impressed with the improvements to Aylin's computational power. The AI can now process data from hundreds of sources simultaneously. It'll be like having an entire intelligence network aboard our ship. Elena was satisfied with all these improvements, but she was most pleased that the Defiant scrap was still recognizably the same ship. She might have better equipment and more sophisticated systems, but she was still a cargo hauler at heart. she would still carry the supplies that kept human civilization growing among the stars. On their last day at New Aberdeen, Elena received a visit from Governor Mitchell. The colonial administrator looked much more relaxed than she had during the crisis, and she brought with her a small package wrapped in simple brown paper.
"This is from the colonists," Governor Mitchell explained.
"We wanted to give you something to remember us by." Elena unwrapped the package to find a small sculpture made from refined metals extracted from New Aberdeen's mines. The artwork showed the Defiant scrap flying between asteroids with 7 larger ships in the background. The craftsmanship was exquisite, capturing both the beauty and the violence of the recent battle. "It's beautiful," Elena said, "but you didn't need to give us anything. We were just doing our job. Captain, you saved 2 million lives with a cargo ship and some mining equipment. That's not just doing your job. That's heroism." Elena felt uncomfortable with the praise, but she accepted the sculpture gracefully. It would have a place of honor on the Defiant Scrap's bridge, reminding her crew of what they had accomplished when the odds seemed impossible. As the Defiant Scrap prepared to depart New Aberdeen, Elena stood on the bridge and looked out at the colony's lights twinkling on the planet's surface. 2 million people were living their lives in freedom because her crew had been willing to fight for them. Children were growing up, families were building futures, and an entire world was prospering because 12 humans in an old cargo ship had refused to let bullies have their way. "Course laid in for the Centauri system," Sarah reported from the pilot's station. "We've got medical supplies and construction equipment bound for 3 different colonies. And defensive systems for all 3 worlds," Tommy added. "They'll be ready if the Dominion tries anything." Elena smiled as she settled into her command chair. "Take us out, Sarah. We have work to do." The Defiant Scrap accelerated away from New Aberdeen and into hyperspace, carrying her crew toward new adventures and new challenges. Behind them, the colony continued its peaceful existence under the protection of Earth Defense Force ships. But throughout the galaxy, the story of the cargo ship that had defeated a Dominion fleet was spreading. Humans on 100 worlds heard about the battle and began preparing their own defenses. They looked at their mining equipment, construction tools, and industrial systems with new eyes, seeing potential weapons where they had once seen only peaceful machinery. The Dominion had wanted to test human resolve by attacking an isolated colony. Instead, they had awakened something they did not expect: the realization that any human settlement could become a fortress if properly motivated. Elena did not know it yet, but the battle at New Aberdeen would be remembered as the moment when humanity stopped being victims and became defenders of their own destiny. The galaxy was about to learn that when you threaten human worlds, humans do not surrender quietly. They fight back with whatever they have, however they can, for as long as it takes. And sometimes that is enough to change everything.